Nathan Mercer sat in his small, cluttered office staring at the grainy footage on his laptop screen. Angelina Jolie's face filled the frame, her piercing eyes locked onto the camera in an interview recorded only a few months ago. Nathan had watched this clip a dozen times before, but tonight, something about it unsettled him. He minimized the video and pulled up another interview, this one from a year earlier. Angelina Jolie appeared again, her voice just as poised, her mannerisms just as polished. But as Nathan studied the footage side by side, he noticed something. That made his pulse quicken. Angelina Jolie's eyes were different. Not just in shade, not just in the way the lighting hit them. Completely different. One moment, her irises were their signature icy blue. In the next clip, they had darkened into a green so deep it was almost hazel. Nathan paused the video, leaning in. This wasn't a trick of the camera. This wasn't a change in makeup. This was something unnatural. Nathan had spent years debunking internet conspiracies, dismissing wild claims that celebrities were clones, androids, or government experiments. But Angelina Jolie was different. She had been one of the most famous women in the world for decades, yet somehow her appearance never truly changed. No signs of aging, no real inconsistencies, except for when she vanished from the public eye. For months, only to return with the smallest, almost imperceptible differences. Nathan opened a folder on his desktop labeled Jolie Discrepancies. Dozens of photos, articles, and videos filled the screen. He had spent the past month collecting evidence, compiling interviews where Angelina Jolie's facial features shifted slightly, red carpet photos where her cheekbones appeared subtly, different award speeches where her voice had an uncanny shift in tone. He exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. He had wanted to prove that the internet's Angelina Jolie clone theory was ridiculous, that there was no possible way that one of Hollywood's most celebrated actresses could be a manufactured illusion. But now, with all the evidence laid out before him, he wasn't so sure. Nathan needed more. He needed someone who had worked closely with Angelina Jolie, someone who had been around her long enough to notice if something had changed. He scoured old interviews, crew lists from her films, and finally, after hours of searching, he found a name: Elliot Hayes. Elliot had been a personal assistant on one of Angelina Jolie's film sets years ago. Unlike many in Hollywood, he had not capitalized on his connections or used his position to climb the industry ladder. Instead, he had disappeared completely, wiping his presence from social media and vanishing from public records. Nathan's instincts flared. People didn't disappear like that unless they had seen something they weren't supposed to see. He pulled up an old forum post, buried deep in the archives of a now-defunct Hollywood gossip site. Elliot had once written an anonymous comment on a thread about Angelina Jolie, a post that had long since been deleted, but had been preserved in fragments by conspiracy theorists. Nathan read the words carefully, his breath slowing. "You all think you know who she is, but I saw something. I saw what happens when the cameras aren't rolling. And if you knew the truth, you'd stop looking." Nathan clenched his jaw. He had spent his life exposing lies, but Angelina Jolie's mystery felt different. It wasn't just an illusion for the sake of fame. It was something deeper, something deliberate. Nathan leaned back in his chair, staring at the name on his screen. If Elliot Hayes had answers about Angelina Jolie, then Nathan needed to find him before someone made sure he never did. Nathan Mercer stood outside a worn-down house on the outskirts of the city, staring at the faded number on the door. The address had taken him days to track down, buried beneath outdated records and disconnected phone lines. Angelina Jolie's name had not appeared anywhere in connection to Elliot Hayes, but Nathan knew that was intentional. If there was anyone who could confirm whether Angelina Jolie was more than what the public believed, it was the man who had worked by her side before vanishing from the industry completely. Nathan knocked once, then again, waiting for a response. The air around him was heavy with silence, the kind that suggested someone was inside but unwilling to answer. He knocked again, firmer this time, his pulse steady despite the anticipation. If Elliot Hayes had truly seen something about Angelina Jolie, then there was a good chance he was being watched even now. After nearly a minute, the door creaked open just enough for Nathan to see a single wary eye peering out. The door remained, chained, the small gap barely wide enough for conversation. Elliot Hayes stood there, his face older than in the photos Nathan had found, his skin drawn tight with the weight of something he clearly didn't want to revisit. Nathan could tell immediately that Angelina Jolie was a name he did not want to hear again. Nathan didn't hesitate. He spoke quickly, explaining that he had spent the last few months investigating Angelina Jolie, uncovering discrepancies in her appearances, strange changes in her features, and long gaps in her public records. He told Elliot that he had seen the online comment, the one warning people to stop looking into Angelina Jolie, and that he needed to know what it meant. Elliot didn't speak right away. He looked past Nathan, scanning the street as if expecting someone else to be lurking nearby. Then, after a long pause, he slid the chain off the door and stepped aside. Nathan entered, feeling the weight of something shifting in the air. Whatever Elliot Hayes had seen about Angelina Jolie, it had stayed with him for years, long enough to make him disappear from the world. Inside, the house was dimly lit, cluttered, but not unlivable. Papers were stacked on the table, photographs, turned face down as if even looking at them was dangerous. Elliot moved toward the window, shutting the blinds before sitting down heavily in a chair. Nathan remained standing, waiting. He knew that Angelina Jolie's secret wasn't something Elliot was going to reveal easily. Elliot finally exhaled, running a hand through his thinning hair. He spoke slowly, carefully, choosing his words with the hesitation of a man who knew that once he said them out loud, there was no taking them back. He admitted that he had worked closely with Angelina Jolie on set, that at first, everything had seemed normal. But then, after a few months, he had started to notice things, small things, things that most people wouldn't question. One day, Angelina Jolie would walk onto set with a small scar near her temple, and the next day, it would be gone. Her voice would shift ever so slightly. Her mannerisms would change in ways that weren't just exhaustion or mood. Elliot had chalked it up to stress, to makeup, to lighting. But then he had seen something he wasn't supposed to see. Something that made him leave Hollywood forever. Nathan didn't blink. He waited as Elliot hesitated again, the memory clearly something he had tried to bury. Elliot admitted that one night, long after filming had wrapped, he had gone back to retrieve something from set. He had walked into Angelina Jolie's trailer, expecting it to be empty. Instead, he had found two of her. Nathan's breath caught. Elliot kept speaking, his voice low, his hands gripping the arms of the chair as if grounding himself. He described, standing there, frozen as two identical versions of Angelina Jolie faced each other in silence. They weren't body doubles, not stunt performers. They were exact. One of them turned to him, and he swore that for a fraction of a second her expression was wrong, like she wasn't human. Elliot had run. He hadn't asked questions. He had packed his things that night and never gone back. Within days, his Iowa contracts had been severed. His contacts had stopped answering calls, and it became clear that someone wanted him to disappear. He hadn't spoken about Angelina Jolie since. Nathan let the words sink in. It was impossible, absurd. And yet, everything he had found about Angelina Jolie pointed to something unnatural, something carefully orchestrated. If Elliot was telling the truth, then Angelina Jolie wasn't just an actress. She was something else. Elliot leaned forward, his voice sharp now, a warning laced beneath his words. He told Nathan to stop looking into Angelina Jolie, to walk away before he attracted the attention of the people who had erased him. He said that whatever Angelina Jolie was, it wasn't something meant to be understood. Nathan's fingers tightened around his notepad. He knew he should be afraid. He knew that if he kept digging, he might disappear just like Elliot had. But he also knew that the world deserved to know the truth about Angelina Jolie. He stood up, thanked Elliot for his time, and stepped back into the night. The moment he closed the door behind him, his phone buzzed with an unknown number. Nathan's. Stomach twisted, Someone already knew what he had just learned about Angelina Jolie. Nathan Mercer stepped into the cold night air, his mind racing with everything Elliot Hayes had revealed about Angelina Jolie. He had come looking for a conspiracy, a theory that he could disprove, but instead he had found something far worse. Angelina Jolie wasn't just a carefully managed celebrity with a well-crafted public image. She was something else entirely. Something that had left a man like Elliot Hayes too terrified to speak for years. Nathan moved quickly, his footsteps echoing on the cracked pavement as he put distance between himself and Elliot's house. The warning still rang in his ears. Stop looking into Angelina Jolie before they stop you. But Nathan had never been the type to turn away from the truth. If what Elliot had seen was real, then Angelina Jolie wasn't a single person. There had been two of her, standing in the same room, identical in every way. Nathan reached his car, his fingers trembling as he fumbled for the keys. He had dealt with dangerous stories before, but nothing had ever unsettled him like this. The idea that Angelina Jolie had double exact living replicas was impossible, and yet it explained everything. It explained the discrepancies in her appearance, the strange fluctuations in her voice, the missing months where she simply vanished from public life without a trace. Nathan slid into the driver's seat and locked the doors. His phone was still buzzing in his pocket, the unknown number flashing on the screen. He hesitated, then answered, bracing himself for what was coming. The voice on the other end was distorted, artificial, but the message was clear. Someone knew. He had spoken to Elliot. Someone knew he had been digging too deep into Angelina Jolie's past. The voice told him to stop, to delete everything he had found, to forget what he had learned. And then, before he could respond, the line went dead. Nathan's breath came fast. He looked around, scanning the dark street. He wasn't alone. A car sat parked across the road, its engine off, its windows tinted. He had seen it earlier, when he first arrived. He hadn't thought much of it then, but now he knew. He was being watched. Nathan turned on the ignition and pulled away from the curb, his pulse pounding. He couldn't go home. Not now. If Angelina Jolie's secret was being protected by people who could make someone like Elliot Hayes disappear, then they wouldn't hesitate to do the same to him. He needed a place to think, to plan his next move. He drove aimlessly for a while, his thoughts spinning. Every instinct told him to run, to disappear before Angelina Jolie's people found him. But another part of him, the journalist in him, knew he couldn't stop now. He had proof that something was wrong, something the world was never meant to see. Nathan pulled into an empty parking lot, turning off his headlights. He grabbed his laptop from the passenger seat, flipping it open. His files on Angelina Jolie were still there, videos, interviews, comparisons that showed how her face, her eyes, her very identity seemed to shift. He opened the folder labeled Jolie, doubles, scrolling through images of Angelina Jolie from different years, noticing again how subtle the differences were. But now, after hearing Elliot's story, he saw them for what they were. Nathan stared at a set of photos taken at the Cannes Film Festival 5 years apart. In one, Angelina Jolie stood smiling, her jawline sharp, her eyes cold blue. In the second, her features were just slightly softer, her expression different in a way that no makeup or aging could explain. Elliot had been right. This wasn't the same person. Nathan closed the laptop and rubbed his temples. He had always believed that truth was a weapon, that exposing the lies of the powerful was the only thing that mattered. But this was something else. Angelina Jolie's secret wasn't just a matter of deception. It was something bigger, something he wasn't sure he was ready to understand. The silence of the parking lot stretched on, the only sound his own uneven breathing. Then, in his rearview mirror, he saw it. The black car from Elliott Street had found him. It sat at the far end of the lot, its engine running now, its headlights off. Nathan's stomach dropped. Whoever was protecting Angelina Jolie, they had followed him. He grabbed his laptop and shoved it into his bag. He had to move. He started the car, gripping the wheel, forcing himself to stay calm. If they had found him this quickly, then they weren't just watching. They were waiting for him to make a mistake. Nathan pulled out of the lot slowly, trying to appear unfazed. The black car didn't follow immediately, but he knew it would. Whoever they were, they wanted him to know he was being hunted. He turned onto the main road, his hands slick with sweat. If they caught him, if they took his files, if they made him disappear, then the truth about Angelina Jolie would never come out. Nathan pressed down on the accelerator. He had to find a way to expose this before it was too late. Nathan Mercer gripped the steering wheel, his heart pounding as he sped down the highway. The black car trailing behind him stayed close, its headlights cutting through the darkness like silent threats. Angelina Jolie's secret had been protected for years, and now, because of him, they were moving to eliminate another loose end. Nathan's fingers tightened around the wheel as he made a sharp turn onto a deserted side road, hoping to shake them off. The tires screeched against the pavement, but the black car followed without hesitation. Whoever was after him wasn't just watching, they were hunting. Angelina Jolie's people had found him, and they weren't going to let him disappear on his own terms. His laptop sat in the passenger seat, the files on Angelina Jolie still open. The evidence was there, photos, recordings, side-by-side comparisons proving that over the years, Angelina Jolie's appearance had subtly shifted in ways that weren't natural. He had listened to Elliot Hayes, had seen the panic in the man's eyes when he spoke of the doubles, of the night he had seen two Angelina Jolies standing side by side. It wasn't a conspiracy anymore. It was real. And now Nathan had become a part of it. The black car accelerated. Nathan felt his pulse quicken as the vehicle moved closer, trying to force him off the road. Angelina Jolie's secret wasn't something that could afford exposure, and these people weren't going to stop until they had erased every trace of his investigation. Nathan swerved, nearly losing control as he took another sharp turn. The city lights in the distance were his only salvation. If he could make it to a crowded area, he might have a chance. But Angelina Jolie's handlers weren't amateurs. They had the resources to find him anywhere, and if they were willing to chase him down in the open, they wouldn't hesitate to silence him even in public. His phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen, his grip on the wheel tightening when he saw the number. Unknown caller. They had been tracking him the whole time. He hesitated before answering, his breath coming in uneven gasps as he listened. The voice on the other was calm, controlled, devoid of emotion. Angelina Jolie's people didn't need to threaten him directly. The silence between the words was warning enough. They told him to stop. They told him that he had no idea what he was uncovering, that there were things about Angelina Jolie that the world wasn't meant to understand. Nathan clenched his jaw, keeping his eyes on the road as the black car moved closer. He had spent his career exposing the truth, tearing down false narratives, revealing the secrets that powerful people tried to bury. But this wasn't just about a celebrity. Angelina Jolie's existence itself was a question with no clear answer. The voice on the phone spoke again. They told him that there was still a way out. He could disappear on his own terms. He could delete the files, abandon the story, leave Angelina Jolie's name out of his mouth forever. If he did that, they would let him walk away. If he didn't, they wouldn't ask again. Nathan's hands trembled as he considered the weight of the choice. Everything he had learned about Angelina Jolie pointed to something far bigger than he had ever imagined. It wasn't just about her having doubles. It was about the deliberate construction of an identity, one that had been controlled and altered over time, a perfect illusion maintained with inhuman precision. He had to get the truth out. The city came into view, the streets buzzing with life. Nathan made a final turn, cutting through a red light, forcing his way into traffic. The black car hesitated for the first time. Angelina Jolie's people wouldn't make a move in front of so many witnesses. He had bought himself a little more time. Nathan pulled into a parking garage, his mind racing. He had to act fast. He grabbed his laptop, his hands moving with urgency as he transferred every file onto an encrypted drive. He knew that even if they caught him, Angelina Jolie's secret had to survive. Someone else had to see what he had found. As he sent the files to multiple contacts, he knew it wouldn't be enough. Angelina Jolie's handlers had erased people before, and they would do it again. But if even one copy of the truth made it out, it would be enough to crack the illusion. The black car entered the garage. Nathan's time was up. He shoved the laptop into his bag, stepping out of the vehicle. Angelina Jolie's people didn't need to chase him anymore. They had cornered him. He walked forward, his heart steady despite the rush of adrenaline. The truth was out now. Even if they took him, even if they silenced him, Angelina Jolie's story would not disappear with him. The driver of the black car stepped out. The man was tall, dressed in black, his face unreadable. Nathan stood his ground. He had spent months chasing Angelina Jolie's secret, and now he was face to face with the people who had protected it for years. The man approached slowly. He didn't pull out a weapon. He didn't need to. Angelina Jolie's influence wasn't built on force, it was built on control. Nathan took a deep breath. He had seen the truth, and that meant there was no going back. Angelina Jolie's world was designed to be impenetrable, her existence a carefully maintained illusion. But illusions could only last for so long. The man in black stopped just a few feet away. Nathan didn't speak. He knew this moment had been coming since the day he had started digging into Angelina Jolie's past. Then, without a word, the man reached into his jacket and pulled out a phone. He handed it to Nathan. Nathan hesitated before taking it. The screen was dark, but after a few seconds, it lit up. A live video feed appeared. And then, Angelina Jolie was there. She looked directly into the camera, her expression unreadable, her presence as commanding as ever. But something about her eyes made Nathan's breath catch. They weren't the same as before. She spoke. Her voice was steady, deliberate. She told him that he had gone too far, that he had seen things he wasn't supposed to see. Angelina Jolie told him that the world believed in illusions because the truth was too dangerous to understand. Nathan swallowed hard. He had spent his life exposing secrets, but Angelina Jolie's secret was something else entirely. The video feed ended. The man in black took the phone back. Nathan felt the weight of the moment settle over him. Angelina Jolie wasn't asking him to stop. She was telling him that he already had. Nathan knew then that he would never publish the story. He would never speak of it again. Angelina Jolie's secret wasn't meant for the world. It was meant to stay hidden, and now he was part of it.